Hello, everyone. Welcome to King Shit Talk. I'm your host, Salid, and I want to thank you for coming to spend a little bit of time with me tonight. I hope everyone is having a wonderful week. My week has been very busy, but good. I have very little complaints other than to complain about this carnivore diet that I'm on. I don't mind the meat so much, but I'm sick and tired of eating freaking eggs every single day, all day. But I am dropping the pounds. I am getting in my Creed 4 uh tech technical body shape. So I'm glad about that. Last week I saw a half a ab and I actually saw one full ab this week. So the dad bod belly is leaving. So I'm happy about that. Tonight's show is sponsored by King Shed Productions. If you have a man or know a man that has a beard and he wants it to be fuller, more moisturized, softer, and smelling great, he can get his beard oil from King Shed Productions. If you need hand and body oil, tattoo oil, scripts for plays, short films, or anything of the like, you can get it at www.kingshedproductions.com. That is the commercial for the night. And you guys that if this is your first time tuning in to the show, I thank you. What I like to do around here is bridge the gap between men and women. I like to help men understand women more and help women understand men more. And at the same time, help our youth to have a more positive set of people to look at, a more positive and strong foundation for them to build their lives upon. With that being said, tonight we are going to be discussing postpartum depression. And admittingly, I knew very little about this when I started researching it. I had heard about it before. I had even heard some women in my circle talk about it, but it never got to the extent of what I found out in my research. And I have posed this question on various platforms, and I got an overwhelming amount of feedback from it. And so I asked some of those ladies to come on tonight and talk about their experiences, talk about their expertise in the subject. Some of those ladies are Layla Garcia, who will be speaking with us, Tiara Jenkins, Courtney Harley, Stormy Harmon, Nikita Hunt, and Miss Cookie is going to share some of her um, expertise on the matter as well. Now, I'm going to bring those ladies up very shortly, and then I have some questions for them. I would like for them to introduce themselves a little bit, and then we will get into the questions that I have. Now, a lot of these questions I had on my own because I just want to know about it, and some of these questions I had some people message me some things that they wanted me to ask these ladies tonight. So some of those questions come from there. I thank everyone that's watching on YouTube Live right now. I thank those watching on Facebook Live and those that are listening on the Wisdom app. I appreciate you. And please go like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, King Shit Productions, and you'll be able to see exactly what I'm seeing. Because right now you can only hear me. But I want you to be able to see these ladies as well and get a greater connection with them and their stories. I'm going to start bringing the ladies up now. How are you ladies doing this evening?
Good. How are you?
I am absolutely amazing. I want to thank all of you for coming on and sharing your story and enlightening those like myself that don't know a lot about postpartum depression but want to know more about it. Um, because in the research that I was doing, it's a lot deeper than I thought it was. I honestly, in my ignorance on the subject, I thought postpartum depression was nothing more than a woman having a child and then she being a little sad because she was tired or something. That's about the
That would have been nice.
that was the extent of what I thought it was until
Yeah.
I started really digging deep into it and talking to more and more women that have dealt with it. Miss Robinson, let's start with you. At what point did you notice that something was wrong?
3 days out of the hospital, I noticed something was not quite right. And then when I went for a checkup, I think like 2 weeks in, and I told my doctor I did not feel right. Like I didn't know what to call it at that point because I had never experienced it before. But I was like, I just don't feel right. And he said, "Oh, it'll pass. You'll be all right."
And that was the gist of it. It'll pass.
That's what that it'll pass, and that was it. There was it was pretty bad. It got really bad, but no one ever helped, like really helped me. It was just like it'll pass. You'll be fine.
Oh wow. What about you, Miss Harmon? When did you notice that or feel that something was wrong?
I so there are different levels to postpartum mood disorders. Can y'all hear me okay?
Hmm.
Yes,
Okay. So there's different levels to postpartum
Yes.
mood disorders, and I have never necessarily gotten knee deep in postpartum depression, but I felt it coming on and I did my best to curb it. But the baby blues were very strong. And that's, that's tier one, I guess, for lack of better words. There's different levels to it. Um, but what I noticed was I didn't want to be in my own house. Um, and I would cry when I had to come home. And every chance I got, oddly enough, you want to be in your house, secluded in the dark. It just depends on the person, but I did not want to be at home, and every time I had to go home, I would bawl my eyes out because I did not want to be within the four walls with my baby. I think I was more worried about my thoughts getting the best of me, which they very easily do whenever you're dealing with postpartum mood disorders. But that's when I noticed something was off. I'm a homebody. So when I don't even want to be at
Hmm.
home, I was like, okay, something is definitely wrong. Yeah.
Now, for those of us that haven't heard the term baby blues, explain those us what baby blues is.
So baby blues usually occurs very early on, like very, very early on, say from the time you have your baby within the first 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. And if things don't fizzle out by week 3 and you feel like you're sinking deeper, now you're headed into postpartum depression. Because baby blues it's common. I have to catch myself from saying normal. It's common. So what happens is sleep deprivation mixed with your body trying to reacclimate itself to no longer carrying a life within it, on top of a big, crazy cocktail of hormones, all of that can lead to the baby blues, where you are having extreme points of emotion for no reason, or not for no reason, but for reasons that you can't put your finger on. It seems like for no reason to other people. And we are, as women, we are quick to um, throw it over your shoulder and say, "Oh, I'm just sleep deprived. I'm hormonal." Well, it's so much more than that. But we also try to give ourselves excuses so we don't become a burden to the people around us, um, and we kind of look past it. But usually they fizzle out, and if they don't, and those feelings of sadness and wanting to seclude yourself start outweighing your good days, come week 3 to week 4, now you're digging into postpartum depression.
Oh wow. What about you, Nikita? When did you notice that something was wrong? Are you
I'm
frozen, Miss
sorry.
Hunt? Oh, you were just zoned out.
No, not
When
now. Sorry.
when did
In
you
and out.
when did you
Sorry.
notice
What was
that
the question?
something was wrong? When did you notice that something was wrong?
Um, I think with my oldest, when it was worse, it was probably like within a week after I had him. Um, was at home. I lived with my mom then, my mom and my stepdad. Well, my mom, and like even when we were in the hospital, I didn't have a good support system at all. It actually was terrible. I went in labor early with both my sons. I had to be a bed rest with my oldest one. Fortunately, I was working in customer service with myself. But first, no, it was like, I'm going to really say right after I got home, because I knew I wasn't going to have help. My mom basically came to the hospital to make sure their dad wasn't there. Like, it was always constant back and forth. I couldn't ask her questions because she didn't want to answer them. And I was in there by myself with the baby, and I just cried. And I even remember getting the phone book. That's how old I am. Y'all don't say anything, and I was like, I made a huge mistake. I want to put the baby up for adoption. I was like, what did I do? I got my kid's dad is a bomb. I knew he was a bomb. I was already going through stuff. Me and my mom didn't have a good relationship. I knew right away. I didn't know what it was though, but I didn't say anything to anybody about it because I feel like I'm already a burden, and I don't know what I'm doing at all. I want to do this, but nobody's showing me how to do it, and I was just about to crash. Like, and then I don't think it went away for a while because I was in an abusive relationship. And then, like I said, I didn't have support from my family. So I just stayed that way. I just kind of kept it quiet and just dealt with it the best way I could.
Oh, wow. What about you, Layla?
I have a lot of kids, so I didn't know I had it with my third because I was 23. But by the time I had my last at 38, I knew what it was. So I'm gonna say it started before I even had him because I was pregnant during the pandemic, and I didn't like their dad. Couldn't go nowhere, so stuck in the house with him. And the baby, the last 2 months was I had to use those shopping carts for handicapped people in the supermarkets if I wanted to get around because every step hurt. So yeah, and then he 9 days overdue, so we had to get induced, and it was just 20 hours of labor, 9.5 pounds, like everything that could have gone hard was hard. So and then he was number 7, like, and we're still in the pandemic and we're still stuck in the house all the time. He didn't know what his doctor looked like. I didn't know what his doctor looked like. Like, you know, it was hard. It was really hard. I'm crying for no reason. I don't cry. That's not me. You know, my mom said something mean to me one day and I just sobbed like some Disney princess. I was like, no, this is not normal. So I went back to work. I had to get out the house, getting up, getting dressed, going somewhere. It helped a lot.
So getting back in your regular routine kind of eased it just a little bit.
It eased, you know, it's very easy to like let the depression overtake you. You know, it's easy to be like, I don't need to shower right now. I can shower tomorrow. I don't need to clean this. I don't need to do this. Like, it feels like everything's unnecessary. I don't need to eat. I can eat later. And then later becomes tomorrow. You know, like, so having some sort of routine or something where you have to get dressed and you have to go outside and you have to like speak to someone who's not a kid, you know, it helps. For me, it did, you know.
What about you, Tierra? When did you know something was wrong?
Good afternoon. Well, not afternoon. Good evening, everybody. I knew something was different towards the end of my pregnancy. I went to the doctor and I said, if you don't take this baby out, I'm going to do it myself. And I think a few days later, they induced me. And then I ended up bringing him home. And he was a colicky baby. So he just continuously cried and cried and cried. And it was to the point where I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. My husband at the time was in Afghanistan. So I didn't really have that support system. So, you know, a colicky baby trying to, you know, hush him up or whatever. And then I was breastfeeding, and then it was like he was constantly hungry. And I was just overwhelmed. So it was to the point where I left him in the house. and I went down the street to the store. I just had to clear my head. I said, you know what? I can't mentally do this. And I went to the doctor and I said, something is wrong. And they were like, what's going on? And I was like, I'm depressed. Like the baby won't stop crying. He continuously crying. And I'm frustrated that I'm thinking about my husband that's in Afghanistan, that he's going to die. So it was just all this stuff that was just going through my head. So, yeah.
Goodness gracious, I tell you, I'm not making light of this, but I tell you, with each story that I hear internally, I'm thanking God more and more that I'm a man, because you guys go through an awful lot. Good
It is a lot.
gracious. Now, do any of
Yeah.
you have a history of postpartum depression in your family?
I know for me, within my family, it's more so they don't talk about it.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
That's what I was gonna
It's
say too.
like, even if you try to bring up, like, hey, I'm feeling down, or, oh, you be all right, just brush it off.
Yeah,
Ain't nothing
brush it
wrong
off.
with you.
No, yeah,
Mhm.
ain't nothing wrong with you.
Go
Like,
for a walk.
Women
Right.
do it every day. Women
Yeah.
do this every day.
Yeah.
You're not the
That's
first
right.
one to have a baby.
mhm.
Right. And it just makes me upset, because I'm like, so many people suffer
lot
in
of times-
silence because they're afraid to speak up. Like,
Mhm.
hey, something is mentally wrong. I have something like not connecting, and people are afraid to speak up because of the backlash and the outcomes. You know, they
Yeah.
afraid to get labeled crazy, or
Mhm.
just it's just a lot. Yeah.
Or disregarded, like I'm sad and I'm telling you I'm sad and you're telling me suck it up.
Mhm.
Right.
Okay. Let me not say anything.
Now, just out of curiosity, the person that said women do this every day, was it a man or a woman?
It's usually an older woman for me.
I was gonna say it's
Really?
usually an elder. Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow.
Hmm.
And it does discount your experience, because you have an older woman telling you in front of a man that there's nothing wrong with you and you're fine. And so I had my husband at the time, who was abusive anyway. I was dealing with an abusive relationship on top of the postpartum depression, and I attempted to commit suicide twice. And I remember being in the hospital and him taking me out of the hospital and directly to church in front of everybody so they could see me in this state of like mess. And I had taken pills to try to end myself, and so they give you charcoal when you're in the hospital, which makes you get sick. So I'm literally in church in the preacher's room, talking to the preacher and throwing up into a bag because this man wanted to prove to somebody that I was crazy, rather than being understanding and helping me.
Now, did anyone else have
Now,
a
did you do that?
say that
I'm
again,
sorry.
Akita?
Did you do that
Right.
before you? I was asking her, did she do that? Did you try to commit suicide before you got pregnant or after you had the baby?
After I had the baby, I believe it was in the first 6 months after I had her. She's my second child. So I had the baby blues with my first one, the first couple days, you a little weepy or whatever.
Mhm.
But the second one, when I went to my 2-week checkup, I told the doctor I didn't feel right. And they said, oh, you'll be fine. By my 6-week checkup, I was like, this is not right. Like, this is not me. I'm usually super happy and laughing and bubbly. And I was a mess. I was crying all the time. I couldn't sleep. I wasn't eating. Between the newborn baby and a toddler and the abusive husband and the family that his family was basically supporting everything he said and did. So I was by myself, and I was being isolated as well. So I wasn't able to get my family to come see me, or at least recognize that I was not in my normal state. So of course, the only time people saw me was when I was out with him and a mess, just crying all the time. And like I said, with the 2 suicide attempts within that first 6 months, it made him look like he was saying, she's crazy. Look how she's acting. So it kind of confirmed what he was saying, even though no one was looking at the fact that I had just had a baby and I was dealing with abuse behind closed doors.
Wow. Now, Stormy, um, this kind of flows from what Miss Robinson was saying, but try to think back on one of the first people that you told that you were going through this. Who was the first person you told, and how did they react to you telling them that you were going through postpartum depression, or if you didn't know that's what it was, the first person that you told that something was wrong?
So it was, I have 4 girls. It was my first child. And I was trying to express to my husband, we had just got married. Literally, I was at our wedding having Braxton Hicks. So just got married and became a wife and a mom like a month apart. And I'm trying to, I can't even put it into words that I'm sad, I need to get out the house. So every weekend I made a mad dash, literally. I would have to pack up my daughter. I really didn't want to bring her with me, but I had to bring her with me. I was breastfeeding at the time, and I was just dashing off every single weekend, going to my sister's house in Columbia. And I would stay until the 11th hour and cry driving back. And I expressed that to my husband, and he just kind of sat there like, you get to stay home, you get to stay home. You get to stay home and be with your baby. So he kind of couldn't wrap his head around it because I'm home and he goes to work every day. And I'm just like, okay. Well, I think I kind of just gently expressed it to my mom. And my mom is my biggest cheerleader. She's super supportive, but I couldn't articulate that that's what I was going through. I was just trying to figure it out and trying to talk through it with somebody. And she asked me what I needed. So she started spending the night at our house and keeping my daughter in the room with her overnight. And it's so weird. You want to spend time away from your child, but then when you do, you also feel extremely guilty. And she was just across the hall. And and that kind of overtook me for a while too. And it's like, okay, so what is this? What is it? I didn't know anything about any mom guilt, or I didn't know anything about anything with my first baby. And so I'm trying to sort through that. I feel bad. My mom came all the way on this side of town to keep my daughter overnight across the hallway. And now I feel bad about that. And I can't even put my finger on what is actually wrong with me. And I'm ready to get out of the house again. Just being in my own house, just kind of it was like walking in my own apartment at the time. It was like the walls were just coming in on me, and it's just me and my daughter during the day. And it was really overpowering for the lack of better words. And it was lonely. It was extremely lonely. And like you said, Layla, you're talking to a baby all day, so you're dying to talk to an adult, but then no one understands how you're feeling, right? And that's extremely isolating, even though you may have people around you. And no one talks about how lonely it is early postpartum, period.
Yeah.
Whether you have postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, baby blues, nobody talks about how extremely lonely it is, right? Like nobody talks about the resentment that builds up against your partner because you are completely responsible for every single little thing when it comes to your baby. And you just literally see them just fall asleep and flow freely, right? Every child I had, I got a little bit better about expressing how I felt and preparing properly. I thank the Most High that we had the resources. The last 2 babies we had, I was able to get a postpartum doula, which was extremely helpful. And I'm a doula myself, so I tell my husband just about everything that I'm dealing with when it comes to births and things like that. And so every baby, he got more and more polished. It took time. You have to be comfortable with expressing what's going on with you and kind of just bracing yourself for someone that may not understand, right? I'm going way out there. That's a habit of mine. Sorry, y'all. But the first person I spoke to was my husband, and he couldn't wrap his head around it. He just thought that he was doing a good job because I didn't have to stress out about going back to work. He eliminated that. He said I didn't have to work anymore. So he thought that that was good enough. You know, like, well, why are you unhappy?
But at work, you get a break and you get to clock out and you get to, it's not
I
the
went
same
back to
thing.
work at 4 months. My baby was 4 months. I was like, yep, I got cabin fever. I literally said that in my interview. I said, I have cabin fever. And I said, the first job that I could get that would allow me to use my degree, I'm out. And so that's what I did. And that was not my plan. I just couldn't do it anymore. I said, I am trying. I'm literally in my own head, talking myself off a ledge every day and trying to keep my thoughts and my feelings in check. That's exhausting in itself. It's like running a marathon. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go back to work. I'm going to start applying for jobs. By the time I did leave the house, I felt much better. But yeah, I got out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And see, that's another reason why I wanted to do this show, because unfortunately, we as men sometimes feel like as long as we're taking care of that financial side of it, that everything else will just fall into place. And
Mhm.
sometimes we get that tunnel vision of, okay, if I'm working and she's at home, she's living the quote unquote easy life. And
Woo!
that's not always the case, because I've found that home life and dealing with those kids is a lot more work than going to clock in somewhere or going to run a business somewhere. That takes
You
a
know
lot.
where I am right now? I'm in the bathroom.
I could tell. I wasn't going to say anything, but I knew that's where you
This
were.
is the only place in the
Yeah.
entire house where they will not bother me.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
I knew that's
My
the only
kids
time.
used
I
to
kid
bust
you
in the
not.
I unlock
bathroom.
that door.
Oh God.
There's gonna be kids here. One here, one here, one here.
Yep.
Yeah, my kids didn't care about that bathroom door. They put stuff
I
underneath
mean,
the
they can
door.
bang
They
on
would
it
not
as
They
much as they
slide
want.
you
They're not
notes
getting
and
in here.
stuff.
slide notes under there. They would sit right beside you while you're using the bathroom. Like, you don't get a break.
Yes.
Jeez.
But
Tierra,
to
who's
piggyback off of what you
See the
said,
fingers under the door? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that too. Yeah, the fingers. To piggyback off of what you said, I overheard my husband on the phone with someone. Like, we have a 9-week-old and he's still home.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And he said it to me too. He said, man, because I told him, I said, come postpartum. Yes, I'm going to have a postpartum doula, but we have 3 other girls. You have to take care of everything. I am not getting out the bed. I'm not doing anything, not doing nothing. Okay. And I overheard him saying, he said, my job is easier than this.
Yeah.
He said, I am tired. And he still doesn't really take on the mental load that we have, right? Women's
Right.
mental load is
Because
much,
his
much
breasts are not filling up.
Yes. So he's still technically
Right.
not doing everything that I do every day, because a lot of stuff was kind of in place or whatever. He doesn't have the big mental load that I have, but he still did everything in the house at the time. And he was telling me, he was like, man, he was like, my job is much easier than this. He was like, he said, I want to go back to work. He said, but I'm not going to leave her like this. He said, this is hard. This is not easy. And then he said it to me, and you kind of want to say something slick, right? But that was a good, healthy moment. I was just like, thank you for understanding. But I want to say, welcome to my world,
Right.
Well,
But
I think what he did is very needed though, because I think a lot of situations could be a lot better if men
Yeah.
would take the time to
Yes.
understand what their partner's going through and communicate with them and actually listen to what you guys are saying to us.
Yes.
So I commend him for, listening to you and seeing where there was a need and filling in as best he could.
Yes.
And
I mean,
Nikita's
and honestly, he didn't have a choice. I said I wasn't getting out of bed. I'm not doing anything but nursing and washing my own butt and figure out the rest.
And she meant it. She meant that.
I'm not going nowhere.
Oh my gosh.
So, and because the wheels still have to turn in your home, right? And as a woman, you're still
Kids got to get fed, taken to school.
They have to go to school. And my children, I homeschooled for 6 years. This is my first year of both of our big girls going to school. So he had to pack lunches. He had to get them ready. Uniforms had to be ironed. Homework had to be done. And then we have a 1-year-old, soon to be 2-year-old. And so she's home during the day. So you have her, Yeah, it don't stop. And good luck.
Mhm.
I'm chilling up here. Don't come up here. Don't talk to me.
Don't bother me.
Don't bother me. No. But if I didn't express my needs and if I didn't have the resources and knew my options, I wouldn't have had any. You
Right.
know, it wasn't always like this. Each baby, they say every round goes higher and every child represents a pivot in your life. And that is
Mhm.
very, very true. You know, we got better each child, me and him both, so, he's top flight at this point.
So that's
But
good.
it wasn't always that way, and I got more comfortable with being more vulnerable and speaking my truth. And even though he may not have understood, he respected it, and we just worked to do our best each time. But it wasn't always like that. It wasn't always this easy. I
Mhm.
can say these last two babies have, as far as my postpartum period, have been great. But that's because I can express myself. I know what things look like, right? I know what to put my finger on and what to call it and what to look out for. But everybody can't do that. No, a lot of
Right.
people have no idea what they're dealing with until hindsight is 2020.
Mhm. And
And
even
sometimes,
if you do know what you're dealing with, sometimes you don't have that help. It's
yes.
great, you have postpartum and everything, but if you can't get the help and you don't
What do
have
you do?
it,
Yes.
you know?
And
Yep.
speaking on that, this question I want all of you ladies to answer, but I'm gonna start with Miss Nikita, then go to Tiara. How did you come out of your depression? Did you zone out again, Keita?
Salid, I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think I have.
Okay.
I what now?
No, I'm listening. You said you don't think you have.
Can you hear me now? I think Spectrum was
Mhm.
out early. I don't think I have. And my sons are 27. Spectrum was out earlier, so if I'm going in and out, that's probably why. Me though.
Okay.
You're going in and out, but we can still kind of piece it
Yeah,
together.
We
we
can
might
follow,
piece
yeah.
it together. But while you're
Um,
frozen, Tiara, how did you come out of your depression? We'll go back to Keita.
At the time, like I said, my husband at the time, he was active duty, and I told him, like when he came home from deployment, I said, I got to go back to work. So I ended up going back active duty, and we just had to make it work. But even now, I do have bits of depression every now and then, but I try to, talk myself out of it because I know, sometimes the enemy wants you to feel like, you're this way when you're not. So, every day is a struggle, even now, when I talk to my clients and I let them know, like, hey, a lot of them do suffer from depression, all because of they scared to get treatment because of how they family or how they church may view them or label them. So I try to encourage them that, just to talk, just get it out there. That's the best thing that they can do instead of holding it all in.
Yes.
And I have a question attached to something you just said. It's coming a little later too. But for right now, let's welcome Courtney to the panel. She has some babies walking around there. And y'all, Courtney is my oldest daughter. So she Courtney, what we're talking about right now, as you know, is postpartum depression.
Okay.
I just asked the question of how did you come out of that depression? Now, I don't know if you are experiencing it right now. I don't know if you're out of it, but you can tell us your thoughts on postpartum depression and where you stand when it comes to that at the moment.
So, a little bit of a background. I suffer from regular depression, just on the regular. And I have for a long time, a little bit over 10 years now. So, honestly, when this first started, I just had my baby in February.
Congratulations.
So
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. And he is my third. So, I've been through this a few times, but
Congratulations.
thank you. Initially, when this started, I didn't really notice because, like I said, I've already dealt with depression. So for me, I couldn't really tell. It took a few people mentioning it to me and like, you know, would ask me kind of periodically, like, are you suffering from postpartum depression? And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, to me, this is just kind of a normal battle. But I have noticed that I can be a little more sad, a little more quick to react and not respond. And a lot of it comes from actually what you just said, not fully opening up, not knowing how, not fully trusting the people around me. And that's not necessarily their fault. That's just kind of how I've always been. And, you know, the stigma that's attached to depression. Most people don't want to talk about it. So for me, I am still working through it. Currently, I'm in counseling. I have a great support system. So, you know, it's not like I'm alone in it, but it's definitely, it definitely has its days where, you know, it might take me one day, but I'm really trying to push through it. I've been better. I think I need to offer myself a little more grace. Seeing as how I just had him 3 months ago.
Right.
Trying to push back and be who I was before I had a baby. It's not happening in the time frame that I would like. So that, you know, that takes a toll too. But, you know, it's up and down. It has its days, but overall I'm all right.
Well, keep pressing forward. You know we're here. Anytime, any place. You know how that goes. Yeah, it is definitely a struggle though. I'm finding out just how much of a struggle it is. So I commend all of you ladies for pressing through, fighting through, continue to do what needs to be done, and in the process still getting help for yourself. Who was I about to go to? Miss Layla. Have you come out of the depression, and how did you come out of the depression?
Like I said, I went back to work. He was 2 months old. So then I had like the mom guilt because he's 2 months old.
Yes.
And all my other kids got me until kindergarten. So I went back to work. I hated the job. Hated the job. I was like, all right, whatever. I get paid. I'm a grown up. I can do this, you know. So they gave me a position that I liked. And then I stayed and I'm still there. I still like it most days. And you know, I think that doing something for you where you're not like anybody's mom or wife and you just get to be, you know, you is very, very helpful in beating this depression. You know, it's easy to not feel like a person anymore. You're just like a vessel for everybody, you know? So when you get to feel like a person again, then you start to actually feel the joy and grab those moments and hold on to them. So that's how I did it. I still have days where I feel my mom guilt because he's almost 3 now, and you know I don't remember when he started walking.
Yeah.
You know.
How about you, Miss Robinson?
I'm sorry, just to touch on what Layla said. I'm sorry, if I didn't pronounce your name correctly.
No, you did.
They don't talk about that part. They don't talk about the very last part that you said. But I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
How did you come out of your depression if you are out of your depression?
It took almost 2 years for me to finally like snap out of it. But it took me having like panic attacks. The first panic attack, I was like terrified. I didn't know what was going on.
Feels like a heart attack.
Yes. And then, you know, when you start hyperventilating, then your hands and your extremities start cramping up. Like it was just the weirdest sensation. And I had to be taken to the hospital. And finally someone said, you have postpartum depression on top of depression. And so I got on medication. I had to get on, I think they gave me like Celexa, I think it was. And I had to take Xanax because I wasn't sleeping. I think I was on the medication for 30 days before I started feeling normal again. And then I was able to like function normally, and I started feeling normal again. But it was at least 2 years, at least. And I don't remember. Like I tell people all the time, I remember bringing her home from the hospital between there and probably 8 or 9 months old. I don't remember anything, like nothing.
Wow. So now is that one of the symptoms, like memory loss or anything like that?
I
It
think
can
so.
be. And I
I
read
think
that
because you're in
recently.
survival mode. You're
Yeah.
literally in
Yeah.
survival
Yeah,
mode. So you're
like
in
you don't
zombie
even
mode.
move,
You're
you just
literally getting
moving.
up and doing the routine just so you can function. You know, you're taking care of the kids. You're trying to take care of yourself, but mentally you've checked out.
Yeah.
So
You
you're
became a robot. You become a
yes,
robot every day. Get up, feed kids, do this. It's like you're not a person anymore.
So it's essentially just like muscle
Literally.
memory. You're just going through the
Yeah,
motions.
literally.
because you know, like
And I
I
want to
never
say
felt like I
too,
needed to hurt my kids or anything, but I was so out of it, and I didn't have a partner that helped in any way, shape, or form. So I think my daughter was 2 weeks old when I got back into driving a truck. So it was, I mean, I was back to work in 2 weeks, and I really should not have been at all. And so
Really.
it didn't, that
Mhm.
just did not help the situation at all.
Now this question is for
right.
all of you as well. I'll start with Courtney. Was there any point in the process where you were afraid to kind of say anything to somebody because you felt like you'd be judged?
I didn't.
No,
Can you hear me?
and only because
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you
Go
good.
ahead,
it's
I
Courtney.
okay. So no, yeah, no, not necessarily being judged. Because like I said, I've dealt with depression. So the people who are around me, they've kind of been around this, they've been around me. So they know that side of me. I more so didn't speak out because I felt like maybe my depression was a bit of a burden to other people. Like I could tell like I was the only one sad. I was the only one going through it. And I'm like, okay, I don't want to continuously be speaking about this, bringing other people down. And a lot of that stuff, people can't understand. I watched a video the other day and it made a lot of sense. And he said, women go through a lot of physical and psychological changes, hormonal changes after having a baby while pregnant to get ready to be a mom. Men don't experience things like that. They go
Right.
off of basic experience, So
Mhm.
all of the things that we experience, you guys don't get to feel, which is a big disconnect, I think, in understanding postpartum depression.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. Nikita, did you ever feel like you would be judged with
Oh yeah.
disclosure?
Oh yeah. The reason I asked Miss Robinson when she attempted suicide, because I attempted it twice before I even got pregnant. As a matter of fact, the second time that I did it, they put me in Patrick B. Harris, and after I got out, I found out I was pregnant. So depression and all that has been running through me for a very, very long time. So again, I'm older than I think all of y'all. So my mom, I'm older. My mom, she didn't, like I said, we didn't have a very good relationship because she went through a lot of childhood traumas herself. And back in the 50s and 60s, they would just like lay on the table, shut up, have the baby, don't say nothing,
Don't make no noise.
don't make any noise. Yeah, just push the baby out and get up 2 days later and continue with your
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
Go clean your house.
Right, damn everything else, or whatever. So I didn't say anything because hell, they already thought I was crazy anyway, a little bit thrown off. And then it was so much going on in the house. And I know my mama didn't want me there, and I know she didn't want the baby there, and she was doing her thing because her and my deceased stepdad now had split up. And then my sister had moved out, and my brother, it was just a mess. And my kids' dad, like I said, he was abusive to all of his baby mamas, all of them, because and but at the same time, that was my first one. That's when I experienced it the worst. And I was too busy trying to get to him and see what he was doing because he was already with another girl, and it was, I I just didn't say anything. I just had to keep pushing and keep going. And I've always been like that. My whole 51 years, I've been like that. I gotta just keep going. I just gotta keep going. And if I felt like if I said something, they were like, yeah, she just got out of Patrick B. Harris, 10 months ago. Maybe she need to go back. So I didn't open my mouth. Now, going back to when all my internet is messed up in here, my internet, I didn't talk to like my best friend at the time. We had our babies at the same time. So our first ones are 9 months apart and the second ones are 2 weeks apart. That's how we were. And she had stuff going on. And she would also say, look, you just got to do this and you just got to do that. But it's not the same for everybody. You don't know, mentally, emotionally, or whatever, physically even, that you're going through. So I didn't have anybody to really talk to. The only time I really got an outlet, because my mom did not babysit. My sons are 27 and 25 now. She still don't give a damn. She don't. I'm just sorry. But I had my one friend, Tiffany, and she was like, I'll keep the baby for you. Because she had just had a baby like 6 months before, I think. And I went out. But the whole time, I was like, okay, I'm free. I can breathe. They're calling me. The baby won't stop crying. The baby won't stop crying. You got a child just like I do. So I had to end my night and I got sad again. And I went and got my son. And I went home. So, but as far as, coming out of it, I'm 51. I still don't think I come out of it because I still think about it. I suppress a lot of it and I still think about, darn, I could have done that. So my ex was like, you need to be a doula. And that's where I met the beloved Stormy. And I was and I wanted to be a doula because I've helped a couple of friends have babies before. And, then at that point, I was in my 20s. I don't even think I was 30 yet. I might have been, but I realized what postpartum was. And I was like, I got to do this. But I couldn't because I didn't have a support system. So I couldn't take the classes and I couldn't do this and I couldn't do that. So when he said to me, I got my certification in October, Stormy, I think. He told me, he said, you need to be a doula. And I was like, okay. So I got the money, I met Stormy, and I told Stormy the same thing in class. I have to do this because I didn't have anybody. I mean, absolutely nobody.
She had us in tears at the training.
Yeah, it was bad because it was so stressful. Like, I didn't think I could have kids because I was engaged to a guy in the service and everything. I think I could have kids. And then I started bleeding and cramping real bad. And I went to the clinic and she said, I think you had a miscarriage. And I was like, okay, well, I still didn't think I could have kids. But I was so stressed out from my life that when I got pregnant with my oldest son, I went into labor at 5.5 months. So they had to give me steroids and this medicine called breathine. So I was already sad from that because I'm like, what's going to happen? So I had to stay on bed rest. Literally at the end, like right before the end of my pregnancy, I had to sleep in a recliner. My mom put me in a recliner, and then I went on birth control, and then I got pregnant with my second one, still with the same bomb ass dude. And it was almost worse because the girl that he was messing with that he's married to now, she had a baby after my first son. So they have a half brother or whatever in between. So I had to deal with that. I had to deal with him whooping my ass for any little thing. I didn't feel like I could get away from him because my self-esteem was gone. It was a mess, y'all. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you it was a whole hell mess. But I suppress a lot of it, and sometimes I sit in this room and I cry about it because I'm like, I could have been so much more and done so much more, but nobody was listening to me. Nobody was paying attention to me. And I just didn't want to bother anybody with it because everybody had their own stuff going on.
Wow. Now, Layla, and this question will go to all of you, but did you find that you pushed your partner or your spouse away while you were going through this? Or
yeah.
You did?
Yeah, definitely. Because I felt like a lot of it was his fault.
Very much so.
Oh, you felt like
I
it was
felt like
his
a
fault?
lot of it was his fault. Like,
Yeah,
you see me struggling here. Right. You gave me this big ass boy. He doesn't stop eating. You're not helping. This is your fault. And he looks like you. Like, it was just a mess.
Oh,
Don't even talk about the looking like, oh my God.
I carried this kid for 9 months. And
You hit copy and paste twice, Nikita.
Like you.
Listen, I'm going to bring the big one in here in a minute. When I say he looked just like, and listen, y'all, His birthday
The
is
disrespect.
the day before his dad's birthday. The day before. So his dad was pissed off because I had him the day before his birthday.
Oh goodness.
Yeah.
The disrespect.
Just to hit the disrespect. What about you, Tiara? Did you push the father away?
I just wanted to go back to Miss Robinson and Nikita. I too had 2 suicide attempts. That's how I found out I was pregnant with my youngest. I was over there in Germany. I ain't gonna lie, I was turning up, and it was just one of them moments. I just was like, got into a depressed state. I was missing home and stuff wasn't going right in my marriage. And I just was like, I can't take this no more. So I attempted suicide, and I ended up going to the German hospital, and they were like, your ACG levels are high. I was like, what does that mean? And they were like, you're pregnant. I said, no, I'm not. Test me again. So they ended up testing me again. And then that's when I came up pregnant. And at that time, I was given an ultimatum. He was like, because I was going to get rid of my child. And he was like, you either have the baby or this marriage is over. So I felt obligated to have my son. So I felt like I didn't really have a choice. But meanwhile, I was still dealing with a little bit of depression because by this time he had went to Afghanistan. So I'm here during the pregnancy by myself. Even after I had my son, I'm still by myself. And he came home for like 30 days and had to go right back. And then he did another 15-month tour. So I was just there with our son, and I was just so overwhelmed because it was like, even when I tried to reach out to my family, especially my grandmother, she was just like, you just suck it up and deal with it. We don't do that. That's not how we was raised and all this. And I'm trying to tell her, like, grandmother, like, things are different from back then to now, but that alone caused the big wedge between my family, and then religion as well. I had Jehovah's Witnesses in my family. So it's like they beliefs is totally different. So when they think I should just snap out of it and all this, and I'm like, it's not that simple. That's why people suffer in silence, because of the backlash that they will receive.
And that's crazy because it seems to always be simple to those that aren't dealing with it.
And of course.
Those that aren't taking the time to really understand it. Did you push hubby away, Stormy?
It seemed like there was some distance between us already, and just kind of circling back, we had a very candid conversation. Because again, I experienced most of this with my first child, and I think I was 8.5 months pregnant, or 8 months pregnant when we got married. And so I think my husband, he was kind of like processing becoming a husband himself, and wasn't sure if that was something he wanted to do, but I was pregnant and he wanted to do the right thing. And I usually don't miss when people are giving off something. But I was dealing with my own stuff at the same time. So it kind of seemed like there was just like a wedge there anyway. And it was like a sense of relief when he did leave and go to work, but then that would go away because now I'm by myself, So it's kind of like, I don't know. I can say just the stage of my life that I was in at the time. I was transitioning from becoming a mom to a wife, and he was having a transition of his own, and kind of he was straight out of the military. I got pregnant at a visit. I came down. So he had just came home, and we started marriage counseling as soon as he got home, because I was already pregnant, and we had already agreed, because he had proposed before he left, so I wasn't pregnant then, that when he came back, we would do marriage counseling. So we kind of stuck to our plan instead of waiting, because there's also this pressure of making sure she's not born out of wedlock, right? So it was a transition for the both of us, but I think mine was heavier, and I didn't know how to express it to him. And he was trying to do the best he could, because he thought that he was relieving me by making sure I didn't have to work. And that was enough. So that's kind of hard for me to answer because I think something was kind of already there between us that we were trying to work through anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think I really had to push him away because it was kind of just like a little bit of distance there between us anyhow.
Already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you push the father away, Courtney?
Yeah, I did. And not necessarily on purpose. It's just, I mean, we were good up until I found out I was pregnant. It's like my emotions did like a 180. I mean, I was angry. I was sick. First of all, for like the first month and a half, I was sick. I could barely get out of bed. And that took a toll on him because he had to kind of take care of the house and also go to work. He'd go to work for 10 hours and then come home, cook, clean, get the kids in the bed. He did that for over a month all by himself while trying to take care of me, So there was a lot going on. He lost his cousin during that time, so he was grieving. I couldn't really be there for him because I'm trying to figure out what I had going on. And I'm grieving the fact that I'm more and more slowly I'm becoming not myself and having to, worry about somebody else when I don't even know how to take care of myself right now. So I definitely feel like there was a wedge that was put between us and I pushed him away, and more so because I didn't want to take the way that I was feeling out on him because I was just so angry. Like I don't know. I felt like my life had been taken from me. Like, and it's not even like it wasn't even like it was a real accident, but it was just like realizing, oh my God, I'm gonna have to do this all over again. It was a lot for me to deal with, and I didn't know how to express that to him.
That's understandable. Miss Robinson, did postpartum depression ever cause you to be afraid to have more children?
No, because my first daughter, I had no issues with her. My third one I didn't have. So I had three girls. It was just that middle child, but I also think that because of all the other things I was going through at the time, it just added on to it made everything worse. It exacerbated everything. 'Cause I was already dealing with an abusive partner. I had no support. I was isolated. So I didn't have, you know, I mean, it was a mess.
Mm. Were you afraid to have more kids, Tierra?
To be honest, in a way I was, because my mother, I would never forget, she told me, she said, your kids are going to be like you. They're going to take you through hell. And I didn't understand because at the time I was running away from home. I was just doing the most growing up. And so when I had my oldest son, I remember one time I'm being out, with my girlfriends or whatever. We went to a timeshare at the pool, and my son decides he's 3 and he dives in 12 feet of water, and I can't even swim.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I'm panicking, and luckily somebody
God.
was there that could swim that to get him out. And then the stories I have. One time I used to be a smoker. I used to be like smoke cigarettes and stuff. So one time I put my cigarette down on the ashtray and he grabs it. And he like 3 or 4 years old. I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Did he inhale?
No, he didn't inhale because I smacked him. And then my youngest, he at the time he had a big wheel and he rode it down a flight of stairs.
Oh my gosh.
And then one time he took poop and smeared it on the wall.
Ooh, I'm dealing with that now with my 1-year-old.
And when I tell you,
I'm glad I didn't have to go
I
through that.
literally could not.
Yes, like homegirl has pink eye and we can't get rid of it because homegirl wants to play in her diaper and do all the things and just
Yeah. So going through all that, I didn't want no more kids. And then also I remember picking him up from daycare. He was like 2 years old and he wanted McDonald's. And I told him, no, we're not going to McDonald's. I'm going home and cook. He threw his book bag at me and I'm driving. Hit me right in the back of the head. I said, I know this little boy ain't. I did whoosh, so fast, like, don't you ever raise your hand at me.
Take you there now.
He didn't raise his hand. He raised the object. Okay. He was
Right,
trying to
like,
take
don't
you
you
out.
ever. And
God.
going through that,
He
I
wanted
said,
that
I don't
McDonald's.
want no more kids.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So it wasn't the depression. It was,
I was gonna say it's not the depression, it's the
Yeah.
actual kid.
yeah.
Yeah. I think
What
my
about
mother
you?
put that on me. When she said that, yeah.
What about you, Nikita? Did it make you afraid to have more kids?
I couldn't have anymore. I couldn't hold the two that I had. I went in, like I said, I went in labor with my oldest one at 5.5 months, and I think I went in labor with my youngest one at 5. So my doctor, right after I had my second one, he was like, "You don't need to have any more children." So I got my tubes tied, burnt, cut, tied, whatever. So I couldn't have any more.
Okay, I got you. You have you thought about that anymore, Layla?
so the 9.5 pounder is he's
Jeez.
crazy, right? He's crazy, and he's number 7. Like, no, I don't need to have any more children. 7's good. 7's more than good. I have children to spare. So no, I told their dad, I'm like, listen, you got to get a girlfriend, or you can't touch me anymore. So he just went and got snipped. Like, that's done.
Okay.
Yeah. If I turn up pregnant, it's something happened. It was very scandalous, and I'll probably be unalive soon. So no more kids for me.
Oh my gosh.
Now, Stormy,
Mhm.
throughout the process, did you ever feel like you lost a part of yourself?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So there's this whole stigma around going back to who you used to be, right?
Whew, how
And
do
what
you
I
do
had
that?
to realize is you can't go back there. You will never go back there. You're not ever going to look the same. You will never be the same again. So once I realized that, I no longer felt like I was losing a piece of myself. Like, as when I gave birth to a child, I gave birth to a newer version of myself, and I needed to learn to embrace that instead of looking back over my shoulder. And I don't think we hear that enough. That is a realization that I had to come to on my own, especially as I became a birth worker and I'm trying to coach people through this process, especially in postpartum. Um, I had to come to that realization myself so I could help. Yes, childbirth is traumatic. It's a traumatic event, which is why you have to grieve that event. And when the process of grief, at the end, you literally come out on the other side, and you're different once you come out of it, if you ever do. But yeah, once we realize that we will never be the same, the process, it doesn't get smoother. It's easier for you to stay on the other side, and you're not looking back, constantly reaching for that.
Acceptance helps.
Yeah, because just as a birth worker, we have moms who are just done and they want to hurry up and have this baby and be done. I'm like, you're not done, honey. You got to raise the child, you know? So even though it's extremely uncomfortable, soak up these last couple of days, mentally record these times, right? Mentally record the time that you could just go to the bathroom and wipe your own butt, go to the kitchen and fix one meal for yourself, because you'll never be able to do that again. And that was kind of just, it was, as a doula, I don't sugarcoat anything. So it kind of made my families uncomfortable when I would say that, but then they would thank me later because they're like, I never thought about that. I'm just trying to hurry up and get him or her here. Why? This world sucks. Why are you trying to hurry up and bring them here? Soak up this time now, because your life will never be the same in the most crazy, overwhelmingly beautiful way. Like, it will never be the same ever. So don't rush it. You're never going to be who you were before. So of course it feels like you lose a piece of yourself. You do. You literally shed something. you know, and then you come out on the other side. But if we don't view it that way, the process of getting through it and braving those waves is much harder. But when nobody's having these conversations,
Right.
what do you do? You know,
Yeah.
what do you do? So
Miss Robinson, how did you know that you were in postpartum depression, if you ever did know, and that it was a little bit more than just hormones?
It was finally diagnosed 2 years down the road. Like those 2 years were literally a blur. And finally, when I started having panic attacks and stuff like that, when they started asking questions like, "How long have you been feeling this way? When is the last time you felt normal?" And when I started giving them the whole story about what I was going through and how I was feeling, they were like, "You are still suffering from postpartum depression." And that's when I got medicated. And so it took 2 years. I knew something was wrong, but nobody was like putting a finger on it. Even with me trying to commit suicide, they still never said you have postpartum depression. They were just like, because my significant other was like, she's crazy. Like that, that's what they just boiled it down to. She's crazy. Um, and that was like really off. Like it really upset me because I know I'm not crazy. People who've known me all my life know I'm not crazy, but in those moments you feel crazy. You may even look crazy to other people who don't know any better. And that's so heartbreaking because you can't even get significant help because people like, oh, she's a nutcase. Oh, there she go being crazy again, and especially when someone's using that to slander your name anyway.
And that sounds like that can do so much damage, because when I think
It
about
does.
that, when I think about it, I think about the old episodes of the Twilight Zone that I used to watch as a kid. And I sometimes some of those episodes there would be a person going through something and everybody else on the planet would not be going through it, and they would be looking at that person like they were crazy. And it's almost like walking around by yourself.
yes.
It's like you could be around people but still feel totally by yourself.
It's literally like the Twilight Zone.
Wow. Nikita,
Yes.
when did
Yes,
you
sir.
when did you know that you were in postpartum depression? Like
When
that's
Storm
exactly what
when,
it was.
when Stormy told me.
Oh, okay.
I didn't know till then. Like I still didn't know what it was. There's a lot of stuff I don't know what it was because, like I said, I didn't talk about it. Nobody talked about it. And then when she told us in class that postpartum lasts for longer than, what did you say, Stormy? It can last for how long?
Oh, so postpartum just means after baby. So it can last a very long time if you don't take care of yourself or you don't get the proper help that you need. But on average, you can literally not feel like yourself for up to 8 years.
8 years, you said?
Yes, but it can go way beyond that, especially if you have a lot of layers of traumatic events that surrounded your birth too. In your case, Nikita,
Yeah.
it can extend out much further than that. But on average, you have to understand that it's not just a year. It's not just when you're done breastfeeding. It doesn't end. Postpartum means after baby. So we are all in postpartum. We are all in the postpartum phase of our lives. It's just what point are we experiencing a postpartum mood disorder? And a lot of times if we don't get the help that we need, we stay in it. We stay in it.
I saw a
Yeah.
doctor say that same thing.
And I think with the situation, even being in that traumatic part of my life before I had kids, during kids, and after they're like I said again, they're 27 and 25, and I sit in this room sometimes and I just like sit up in the bed because I'm like, why are you crying? I'm crying because I did so much fucked up shit, and nobody ever like showed me how to do anything. Nobody showed me how to breastfeed. Nobody showed me how to change a diaper. My oldest son had a hearing. He had a developmental delay. He couldn't hear until he was like 3 or 4. And then my youngest one, he's just been a whiz the whole time, but he's off the chain too. That's my twin. And then dealing with, it's generational. Like I find myself looking like my mom and living my life the same way my mom lived. up until this day. And I'm just like, oh my God, you know, it's like a reincarnation of all this bull crap. And so just recently I went to counseling. I mean, I've been in the crazy house. I mean, as I call it or whatever, and it's just like nothing sank in. And then it's till you get to the point you're like, Stormy said it. I went to counseling before I went to doula, get my doula certification. But then I just, after she said it, I was like, you got to sit down and just like really reflect on this stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I just started thinking, I'm like, and the more I take care of myself and the more I talk it out, or write it out, or talk to other people and communicate it, and being a birth worker, let me tell you something. That's like the best experience in the world. I'm going to just be honest with you. I cried after my client had her baby on the way home. It was 4:00 in the morning. I stayed with her for 14 and a half hours. And I'm just looking at everything that's going on. And I actually cried because I could be there for somebody who possibly, you know, having a hard time. Or and I still, like, she had the baby a week ago, and I still talk to her to try to make sure, because Stormy said it's very important that you check on them afterwards and make sure that they don't go into postpartum. So it's one of the things. I'm just happy that I can help somebody else, even though I'm still a little dysfunctional myself, a little thrown off or whatever, ting. But I want to be able to bring awareness. That's why when you said you were doing this, I was like, we got to get Stormy. Because we can bring it to you from the doula side, whereas I can bring it to another side, and she can bring it from another side, but you guys bring it from not being a birth worker as well. So, but I'm still in it. I'm still in postpartum. I just got to work through it.
Well, let me ask you guys this, because I was curious about this, because I saw when I was researching it, I saw some cases like this. Did you guys deal with any kind of physical changes, such as hair loss, weight loss, rashes, anything like that? Let's start with Courtney.
All three. Yeah, I got an ASS rash on my arm now. Oh yeah.
Dark spots.
Yes.
My hair, yeah, it's a mess.
I have a picture that I keep up. I have a picture that I keep up in my house that I'm reminded regularly of where I was and where I came from. If I showed you that picture, you'd probably be like, what in the world? I was like 160 pounds. And that's super skinny for an over 6 foot woman.
Yeah.
And it sits right here. And I remind myself every day of where I come from.
Well, we won't force you not to show it.
If
you want to show us what that was like. What about you, Nikita? Did you experience some of those changes as well?
Oh, everything. I wasn't eating. I had bags under my eyes. You know, I've always kept like a low haircut. My best friend was a stylist, but my hair would break off. One thing I have to say is like, I got my braces off, but this is my 3rd time having braces. But my gums would swell up around my braces, or anything you name it, it did it. It did it.
Oh wow.
Let's see this picture. Let's see. I didn't see it. Hold it back up again. Oh, wow.
Still beautiful, but definitely skinnier.
Yeah. I was small like that too. Yeah. I always picture women when they have their babies, and after they have their babies, they still got the bump.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't have that. Mine it went completely away. And people were like, you ought to be thankful. I wanted that. I don't know why, but I wanted that. Yeah, I didn't have it. It was like, okay, the baby out, boom. I don't have nothing to show for it. Like, the baby just dropped out the sky. You know, I wanted that because I don't know if it's a part of, I wanted people to be like, oh, you had a baby, and you know, let me rub you. You know, I just wanted that attention, and I didn't get it. You know.
Did you have those changes as well, Tiara?
Yes, I did. My neck was black, like black, like dark, like extremely dark. And then for my first pregnancy, I got really small. Like, my son was like a basketball, because I'm like 6'3". So my son, I carried him very low and small. He was like in the shape of a basketball. So right after I had him, my stomach went right back down. But it's like, well, my youngest, he was the struggle because his dad was stocky, so he came out stocky. He was like 8'11", and then in the 2-week checkup, he was 10 pounds and some change. So he was just going.
Y'all having some big babies.
Yeah, and I had to push him out. And I will never forget the doctor. He was like, come on. And he's too busy looking at my feet. He was like, you got some pretty toes, but come on, you got it. And I'm like, really?
My guy had a fetish. He had a fetish.
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Now, y'all, some of you have already answered this question, but were you able to continue doing like your everyday normal stuff, whether that's going to work, whether that's doing things around the house? Were you still able to pretty much do those things while dealing with postpartum depression as well?
By the skin of my teeth.
I didn't have a choice. I didn't have anybody to do any of those things for me. So I had to continue to do those things, cook and clean and take care of the other child, work, breastfeed, all of that with no help.
Yeah.
Breastfeeding itself is a full-time job. So, ooh.
Yeah, because I heard that like drains your energy and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And you have to eat well and you have to stay hydrated so that you can give your baby milk that fulfills them.
Exactly. And you have to get rid of milk to make more milk. And if you're stressed out, you're not going to make enough milk because you're stressed. So it's like it's a stressful hamster wheel. So on top of
and it's the all day thing.
Yeah, like I need to pump now, and I would if I could hear y'all over my you know, like it never ends. And trying to integrate that back into your life, especially when you're a mom of multiples and you're doing that again on top of all your other responsibilities, and then dealing with something like postpartum depression. Like I have never gotten that far, but I can only imagine because I get as far as the baby blues, and it's hard there. So trying to do all the things because you have to, you know.
It's
and,
tough.
and one of the things that and I'm gonna always say something about class, but even after with the experience of being a birth worker, is that your family and your friends will be like, oh, I can't wait till you have this baby. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna be able to help you clean up your house, and I'm gonna
liars.
And
lies.
all they want to do is come and look at the baby and see who the baby look like and see if he ugly or pretty or whatever the case may be. Some not everybody. I'm not gonna say everybody. And then they hold the baby for a minute and they go home. They don't say, well, do you need to wash? Do you need to wash?
If they come, right?
Yeah. Do you need to wash your ass? Do you need any clothes washed? Can I wash the dishes? Did you eat? None of that.
And then judge you for whatever you are doing.
Yeah, and then come and look at your house and tell you your house is a mess, or talk about your house being a mess. Well, okay then. I can't do anything.
When you gonna lose that baby weight?
What do you?
When you gonna lose that baby weight? My cousin had a baby and was back to her shape 3 months after she had a baby. What's wrong with you?
We are not built the same.
You got to take care of the mom, man. You got to take care of the mom, not the baby. That's the mama got the baby. The mother is the one that needs the help. The baby's gonna be okay. Take care of the mom.
The baby's needs are gonna be met. Period.
Now, did a lot of these people that were that way, did they have kids of their own?
Yep.
They just so happen didn't deal with it or don't really know about it.
They went through life with they went through it, and I don't know if they forgot or if they just are so used to doing it that way that they feel like you should have to do it that way too. And we don't have the same amount of stress that they had. We have totally different types of stress, and there's so many more things to factor in now. A lot of those women were stay-at-home, moms, those grandmoms, and they popped out 13, 14 kids and they wasn't working, or they were so used to working that they, didn't have an issue with going back. But when you are working full time and you're doing everything, you got a house to take care of, and you're doing all the other stuff, and then you got to carry a baby through all of that, and then have the child, deal with postpartum depression, and then take care of everybody else except yourself. It's a lot. It's a lot.
A lot of our
And people
elders lived in
how
survival
you not
mode
taking
too.
care of yourself?
So
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
don't
have the time.
understand, you know, us vocalizing how we feel is already ridiculous, right?
Yep.
Because our grandmas and our aunties, they were just happy to get out the house with the first man that would marry them and get them out the house, right? Let's just be honest, that's most of our elder situations. And they weren't happy, and they were okay with that because they were free.
Yeah.
And so they compartmentalized and put all that behind them, and they just got through it. They didn't think anything about depression or being down or sad because they had to do what they had to do. They had to lay there and act like they enjoyed it, or maybe not. They probably didn't give a damn back then.
Yeah.
You know, because I touch on that sometimes when I'm training. Like, you know, a lot of our elders, our grandparents, besides our grandfathers, they never experienced pleasure. They have no idea what that is.
Mhm.
And the fact that we are advocating for it, that's a problem. Like, what?
Yeah.
Girl, don't worry about that. I don't even know what my cervix is. You know, our people don't even know about our own. We don't even know what our parts are. We think all of this is the vagina, you know, because nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody talked about it with them. So nobody talked about it with our moms, and our moms can't tell us in the right way, you know.
Right.
So it's just it's a cycle that we're just working hard to break. And so when we're trying to reach back out, like Tara, when you you said you talked to your grandma, like what girl, what you talking about? I have 5 children and I did all of this by myself while my husband was at work. Shut up and get up. You'll be fine. Because I was fine. But they're really not fine. They're really effed up.
Yeah, that's
And
one
so
thing
are
I
their
know.
children.
Don't
Like,
realize.
so are our parents. You know, like,
Yeah.
Because I
And
know for me, it was all a generational thing. Like when my mother was pregnant, because my mother had my brother when she was 14, 15, and my grandmother kicked her out the house. So when I was pregnant as a teen, my mother kicked me out the house. So I was homeless. You know, so it was like the generational cycle was continuing on. And it wasn't until I was about to give birth to my oldest son that my mom actually came around. And she was like, you know, I want to be there for you and all this. And I didn't let her in the delivery room. I didn't start back talking to her until after I had the baby, because I felt like even though I had a child young or whatever, at least I finished high school. At least, you know, I still was able to accomplish the things that I set forth to do, but she was just doing what was done to her. And so I said, you know, going forward with my kids, I would never try to repeat the things that was done to me from my parents. That's one thing I said I would never do.
yeah. If we don't recognize it or try to break the cycle, it's always a cycle of mothers mothering the way they were mothered. And then here we are trying to make sure that doesn't happen, right? My mom is amazing, but my grandma lived in survival mode and did the best she could for my mom. So my mom had she had a good example, but my grandma suffered a lot. My grandfather practically abused her to the end, you know, until he couldn't raise his hand no more. They did the best they could with what they had. And even though that's not always the case, it doesn't feel that way to us, right? But
yeah.
we're just trying to constantly break the cycles. And then that's something that you're constantly talking through as well when you're dealing with all the other layers. Like the mental load is real. It is really real.
And that's a sad part that I think about, is because just talking to you guys, it makes me think about how many young women and women are out there that are going through this, that feel like they don't have an outlet, or they may not have an outlet, and they're just trying to do the best that they can to survive day by day.
And these times with social media, you see the statuses, right? Like, of people just trying to get something out there because nobody's listening to them. So they may make a simple post like, I can't do this anymore. Motherhood is hard. And everybody's like, you got this.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
that's not
Nobody.
very helpful.
Well,
You know,
people rarely.
Just
Yeah.
told you
People
she don't got
rarely
it.
say.
yeah,
Yeah.
she doesn't
People
have
rarely
it. And that's
say
what she's
what
trying to
exactly are you
say.
feeling. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes they say way more than that, and we overlook it, or we just type something real quick and like, oh, I'm praying for you, and then moving on.
Right.
I it's hard because either you scroll or you acknowledge, but sometimes you got to dig a little deeper, go to their inbox and try to hold space for them, because sometimes that's all they need. Somebody that can just understand. You may not even live nowhere near them. Sometimes they just need someone who can understand, can kind of relate, because sometimes you don't have that around you. Yes,
They
I
ask
remember
me
that.
all the
I
time.
remember
They
that,
ask,
Miss Robinson. That happens a lot. And then what do? We share her last posts. We share this. We share that. We should have known. We noticed that she did say this time, and we should have did more. Okay, but it's too late. It's too late.
And
And
for
also,
those,
another thing that we've been seeing lately is moms harming themselves, their children's, or their spouses. Y'all remember the young lady who hit her boyfriend with her car in the
yeah,
grocery store parking lot?
yeah,
So I have these conversations with my husband, and the first thing we think about is, do they have a child? How old is that child? Because if it's a younger child, they're probably dealing with postpartum psychosis. Nobody thinks about that. You just go to prison.
yeah.
They send you
That's
off to
right.
prison and you don't get any help when you really need help. Who
And see
thinks about
that,
hitting somebody with a car and getting out and beating them up some more? Like, you're not there. You've mentally checked
totally
out.
gone. And
Yeah.
that goes into my next question, because we talked a little bit earlier. Some of you spoke about being in like a suicidal state while going through postpartum depression. But have you ever thought about harming your child while you were going through that? I'll start with Nikita.
yes. I'll be honest with you. Yeah. Yeah.
What was the question? I'm so sorry.
I was saying that some of you talked about being suicidal while going through postpartum depression, but I asked, had you ever thought about harming your child?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And it wasn't because I was mad at the child. I was just like, I shouldn't have even brought him in the world.
Yeah.
Like, why did I do this to him? Why did I do it? Like, he don't have anybody but me, and I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like, I do, but I don't, and I'm reaching out and I'm trying to let people know, and without saying it, and nobody gives a damn. So I'm like, what if I just smother him with the pillow, or leave him in the car in the heat, or it's just all kind of stuff that you think about. You snap out of that shit and you grab him and you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I thought about it. You know what I'm saying? And so it's really, really sad. It's really, really sad, because you would just think I should have had an abortion, or if the condom or the birth control hadn't worked, or I shouldn't have been with this fool. My baby wouldn't even going through this, and that drags on until, like you said, for years. It's like, I should give my kids away. Even when they were in their like 9, 10, preteens, I should give them away, because I still don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not getting it right.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, Miss Robert? You ever felt that way?
I never wanted to harm my kids, but I definitely wanted to harm myself many times. There were many times where I felt like I did not deserve to be here. But then the only thing that kept me from doing that was realizing that my kids would be left with people who weren't going to take care of them the way that I would.
That
So
too. Yeah.
they actually kept me here.
Yeah.
What about you, Courtney?
I've never thought about harming them or myself. I have a few times thought about allowing them to go, and just be with their dad or be with that side of the family, because I felt like I was inadequate. But I never have thought about actually hurting them. I will say I can understand how you can get to that point, because I've been to a low point, lower than I've ever been before. So I understand how you can get to the point of feeling like overwhelmed, like this is just too much. It's too much for me. It's too much for them. I'm not doing the right thing. And, and that mom guilt, oh my God, that plays such a role in depression, postpartum, I feel like, because we will beat ourselves up and not give ourselves any grace for the traumatic, life-threatening event we just went through and are still recovering from. And I think that plays a lot into why people or why women get to that low point, because society is just not made to offer us that grace after we have those children. Like other countries will have you out of work for a year, fully paid.
Yeah.
6 weeks.
Canada does.
That ain't enough to do anything.
Yeah, Canada does. Yeah, they will.
Like, it's ridiculous how they treat us here. This is not a mother family type of environment that we live in, and it is taking a toll.
Yeah.
That's so true. What about you, Tiara? Unmute that mic.
I did in the beginning, like I stated earlier, my son was very colicky. So it just seemed like all he did was cry, 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 no matter what, and it just seemed like I was so frustrated. It was just me. Husband was in Afghanistan. I didn't really have anyone I could turn to. So it was to the point where, like I said before, like I had to literally go out the house because I was having thoughts of smothering him or like just like, I don't know, doing something crazy because he just would not stop. And then finally I just was like, you know what? Let me just regroup. And I remember going to the doctor, and the doctor was like, hey, what's going on? And with the military, you have to be very cautious of the things you say. So I had to reword it differently so that they didn't take my kids away from me. So I just was like, I think I'm suffering from just a little bit of depression, and they wanted details and I couldn't tell them details. I just was like, I just think I really need to be on something to help me. And at that moment I did. And I have a cousin who actually beat her son to a pulp and he ended up dying. They said that her mother, when her mother was pregnant with her, that she was a crack baby. So when she had kids, that took all of her not brain cells, but it just made her think differently. So when it came time to her having kids, it made it less and less probable. So I would never forget that phone call that she beat her son to a pulp, and he was only 4 months old. She ended up doing time. She was looking at 10 years, but she only did 6 years, and she was in isolation. They couldn't have her in general population because they said that people were trying to kill her because of her harming her child or whatever. So even now she don't talk about it. And I told her, it's best for her to address it. But she tries to block out that part in her life. But I'm not gonna lie, it made me look at her differently because 3 months, 4 months, and going to the hospital and they saying that your child brain is like jelly. Like, it was just too much to take in or whatever. But she did her time, and now she's trying to get back, but it's just hard for her to get back acclimated to society.
Let me ask you this. When she before she did that to her child, did she reach out to anyone that you know of? Or did she even know that she was dealing with postpartum depression?
Honestly, I don't know. I remember at the time I was living in New York, and she was back home in Jersey. So I remember I had just had my oldest son, and she was like, let me see the baby, da, 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 da. So, I took the bus out there to go see her, and, we're sitting there, and we're talking or whatever. And she was like, you know, I think I do have a little depression, but I'm not sure. And I remember that day, like it was yesterday, she was like, you know, if any time you need to get away or you just need some downtime, I can watch the baby for you. And so when everything came out that she beat her child, I'd be thinking like, wow, what if I would have let her watch my child? What she would have did that to my son? You know, I think about moments like that even now, but I don't think she reached out because at the time she lived with my grandmother, and my grandmother was a pastor of a church. So it's like they didn't talk about depression and stuff like that. That's just not talked about, especially in the church.
Yeah. Let me say, real
Which
quick,
is
we
crazy.
have 32 people on the Wisdom app attempting to listen to this right now. They can hear me, but they can't hear you guys. I need to tell you guys, go like and subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can see this beautiful baby that Stormy is holding right now. I thought I was tripping at first because I heard a baby kind of crying a little bit in the background. I was like, am I the only one that hears this baby? Or are we talking about babies so much to where I'm starting to hear them in my head or something?
I am so sorry. I forgot I wasn't muted and I could hear her upstairs. And
Oh,
she has her
you're
days
fine.
where she's fine with dad, but of course tonight it wasn't happening. So I
Oh,
said,
you're
just
She
hang
is
with me.
Of
gorgeous.
course, when mommy's busy.
Thank you. Yeah, right. That's how it is. And she, as soon as I came upstairs, she stopped crying. I hadn't even touched her yet. So, yeah, this is Nia. She is 9 weeks as of Tuesday.
Oh, wow. She's a fresh one, too.
yes, Lord.
Yeah, she's fresh.
Yes.
Now,
So,
that's a great question Miss Robinson just asked. You guys answer this for us. Do y'all feel like it's harder to get treatment as Black women?
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
yeah.
I feel like it's harder for us to reach out and get over the stigma and
Yes.
the strong type vibe. I feel like the treatment is out there. I just feel like there are things that are impeding us to getting it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
That's it. That's it. Go ahead.
yeah.
I definitely felt like I wasn't being heard at all. And I was telling people, I was telling my doctors, and they were like, oh, you'll be all right. You'll be all right. Even with me
Yeah.
attempting suicide twice within that first year of this child's life, like they still did not give me the help that they knew I desperately needed. It took me going to a different type of doctor. And I think that they were just really trying to find a solution so that I could function normally. And that's what got me the help that I needed. But it took too long years. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like, and even now, like
Yeah.
medical issues that I'm dealing with now, I feel like they don't listen to me.
Yeah.
As much as I tell them I've switched 5 different doctors and I'm finally getting the treatment that I deserve, but I've had to suffer for almost a whole year. So I definitely feel like they don't listen to us and they
I
feel like we
believe,
can handle more.
And I know for me,
yeah, I
even
believe
now,
that we have to over advocate. We really do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We
yeah.
have to over advocate for ourselves because they don't. My mom works in the health field. She says it all the time. She said, I know it's not fair, but yeah, you're gonna have to speak up a little louder. You're gonna have to push a little harder because they look at you differently. They do.
And that's true. I've seen it myself when I was working in the hospital system. It's sad that when you, especially when you see it for yourself, because
Yeah.
we hear about it, but to actually see how they can walk right past and go to someone else, you know, it's crazy. What were you about to say, Tiara?
I was gonna say, even now, I make sure that I'm being seen by African American doctor because I know I will get better treatment, and I feel like they will understand more. It's even to the point where,
Yes.
like, as soon as I moved here to Florida, I made sure that all my providers were African American. Like, no matter what, you know, it's even to the point where they were like, "Do you have a preference?" Yes, African American. You know, because I feel like we would get better treatment from somebody from us besides anybody else because they won't know how to treat us thoroughly. So
What do you feel about that subject, Nikita?
I feel I'm kind of torn in between it because, you know, some of us sometimes lean the other way because we feel like we have to, because it depends on where we're working at. Private practice, probably, yeah, I think you may, but even sometimes you don't. So you have to really do your research on the person, because there's a group on Facebook called, what is it? Something Greenville. And I see people on there all the time asking, who's a good oncologist? Who's a good this? You really need to do your research yourself, and look at reviews and things like that. You can't just go, word of mouth. You can go in. I've had some African American doctors, and I'm just like, it doesn't mean that I wanted to actually go to one that was, white, but I would just like, this is not working for me. So we're not vibing. The energy is not good at all. And then I go to another one and I'm okay. So I'm just kind of in between, because you can have some really good. I'm gonna be honest. The best experience that I've ever had was with the Asian Indian doctors. Like,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and I don't know why, but those were my best experiences. Especially when I had a white doctor when I had my oldest one, and I don't know if anybody knows Dr. Pandya. He died in a car accident a while ago, but he was my second doctor, and he was one of the best doctors I've ever had. The best.
Mm. This is actually another one of those deep and informative conversations that we've had on the show. So those that have seen me on the show and been on the show before know what that means. That means I'm about to spark up a cigar to calm my nerves. Stormy, is it okay if I smoke my cigar being that the baby is present?
Stormy said, "Give me a cigar." Come on.
I did the same way. What is this?
He's so respectful.
like-
Stormy. Listen,
Well,
I
thank
don't
you.
want the baby to having to look at the screen and be thinking, okay, why is this man
I
got
think
smoke
she's
coming at
more
him?
so looking at this fan.
Right,
She's
Molly.
still,
Okay.
he's soaking all the
Right.
other sites up. So
Well, while I get it together,
Funny.
thank you.
um, and we'll start with Miss Robinson. Who, if anyone, helped you through the process? And I know some of you are still dealing with it somewhat, but for the most part, who can you say helped you through the process?
My kids helped me get through it, because I still had to be mom to them. I still had to, make them laugh and still, find joy in in something. And so I found joy in them. And so they helped me to stay here, to continue to push through and get myself together. And now that they're grown, one is 18 and one is 22, and one just graduated this past Sunday from high school. And
congratulations.
thank you. And
Yes.
to now be on this side of things, I'm so grateful. I'm grateful that I stayed to see this, that I saw it through. So
Amen.
Let's go to Courtney. Who helped you through the process?
Who helped me through the baby, the 3-month-old? That definitely his father. He's much more optimistic than I am. He sees everything through a positive lens, and I usually don't on a regular basis. So now it's like double. And he helps to keep my spirits up, remind me to stay positive. I also have my therapist. I started therapy in December. She's great. My mother, which, believe it or not, used to be the last person I would go to. She's now one of the first. We've definitely grown past that. She dealt with a lot of things herself that has made her a very hard woman, but she's trying to learn and understand. So
Yes.
those are definitely, I was gonna say, you might can relate to some of that.
Most definitely. Yes. And I'll leave it at
My
that.
mama's a tough one.
Tough as old pork rinds. But
Oh God, here you go.
Mhm. One of her favorites.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Who helped you through the process, Tiara?
To be honest, my faith and therapy Therapy helps a lot. Because sometimes, even though you may have friends, sometimes you just want to go to professional, So
That's best.
Get away. Go on and get from me. I don't even want to talk to you, Yeah. Yeah.
Like, yeah, like my faith is got me through some very detrimental times.
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, even now, is regulated better now, which is awesome because my last suicide attempt, I will never forget. I was in Korea and I was just overwhelmed. They didn't really have the adequate doctors and stuff there, and I was just overwhelmed just with everything. And my son's father was just being butthole, so I just was like, you know what, I'm done. That's it. And I remember taking them pills, and I remember collapsing. And then they told me that, they end up calling the paramedics and everything. And then I had like an outer body experience. I was sitting there and I just started crying. And God was like, you know better. You know better.
Yeah.
Now is not the time. Now is not the time. And I just started bawling, crying. And then he was just like, I have so much in store for you. It's going to get better. It's going to get okay. You're going to be okay, So once I end up getting there to the hospital, charcoal, and, they big on, do you need someone to talk to and all this? And I'm just like, at the time, I just felt like, even though they told me to talk to somebody, that person will end up talking to everybody else, So it was just a trust and comfort thing at that time. So.
What about you, Nakita?
Well, because my postpartum turned into regular depression and anxiety and panic attacks and all that other stuff, lately I just started talking more about it to everybody. I would listen to other people talk to me. Like, people just call me any time of day or night, and I'm listening to them. I'm telling them my story, and they're like, "Oh, really?" So somebody else is going through it. So I just started working through that, and then I started getting certifications for my life coaching, and I've mentored at work, and I'm always trying to help people. But my oldest one, the one that's born the day before his dad, and he'll get on my ass real quick. I ain't gonna lie to you. Mama, you need to stop this shit. I'm sorry, I'm gonna cuss, but he's like, you better than that. You do this and do that. He actually, if you see this wall behind me, he actually was like, put all your stuff up on your wall. Because sometimes they can hear me here crying and like, look at your wall. He's like, look at your wall, and then get up and motivate yourself to do. And then I just start wanting to do more and more to help people because I don't want them to be like me. I just don't want anybody to be like me. So between and Tierra faith, because I did go to counseling. They had me on every kind of pill you can think of. Prozac, Effexor, one starts with a V, I think, gave me hallucinations. Busapar, I think. I don't know. And then I finally got to one counselor, it was a Christian counselor. She said, you can take those pills, but I think prayer is going to work better for you. Because if the pills don't work, then you're gonna go to the drinking and then smoking, and it's gonna be a big thing. So I threw them all in the toilet and got rid of them and prayed. And it's been rough, but my oldest one definitely will shoot me a text in a minute and like, stop that bullshit. Stop. You're better than that. We're fine. Because I still worry about. They're still here with me, and I still worry about them to this day. And they're like, we're fine. We're okay. We watched you. And even though I would have breakdowns, they would still see me hustle. I get up and work 2 or 3 jobs. I still do. I barely sleep now because I'm always trying to think of how I can make things better for them, for me, and for everybody else around me.
Isn't that something though? How the universe works, where you can go through postpartum depression, anxiety, psychosis, due to children, and then the children save you. In the long
Yeah.
run, I mean,
Oh,
your
Lord.
sons are motivating you and pushing you to get out of certain situations.
And
That's
Kids
I'm
love so
glad for that.
unconditional.
Yeah, it's so agape and unconditional. And mine, I'm glad that it could have went another way. I got some good sons. I really do. They was bad as hell. Don't get me wrong. They was bad as hell. Lord have mercy, they was bad as hell. But they grew out of all of it. Like they did some stuff that other people did, like smoke. They started smoking weed. I was like, shit, I'm gonna just go buy it for you because I don't want you out here in the streets. And when I say a very, very open, like transparent relationship, we talk about everything. So them being able to come to me and like, Mama, stop, get up, because we're watching you. We still watching you at this age, and they get out there and they hustle and they talk to other people and everything. So yeah.
That's wonderful. Did I ask you about it yet, Miss Robinson? I did. So I'm gonna throw a couple more questions at y'all. I'm gonna tell you right now, if I go where I want to go, it'll be 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'm not gonna do that, y'all. So I got
No.
2 more. I got 2 more questions, and then we'll
Salid
ride
go
off
for
into
6
the
hours.
sunset.
His
I'll
clock,
do
if
it.
y'all don't go back and watch him, Salid's
Yeah, go
clock,
back
he
and
has
watch
to
some
go
of the
for
other
6
shows just so you
hours.
don't come out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what advice would you give someone that's going through postpartum depression right now? We'll start with Stormy.
She's gonna chime in too, I guess.
Mhm.
My biggest piece of advice is, well, you said going through. My biggest piece of advice is always prepare as much as you can. Of course, naturally, I'm a doula, so I'm a big advocate for doulas. So if you can afford it, or you have the means to put it to the side, start saving up for a postpartum doula.
Yep.
Also, go ahead and start searching for culturally competent therapy. Not just therapy, culturally competent therapy. You need someone that can understand your plight, not just, someone that you can call on. It needs to be so much more than that.
Oh, listen to the baby.
And educate yourself on it too. That's my next. Oh, thank you.
She's so pretty.
Thank you.
What about you, Tierra?
I would tell them to give themselves time. Never feel like you're on the time limit to heal. And don't be afraid to reach out. If you feel like something ain't right, no matter if it's mentally, physically, reach out. Don't listen to outsiders. Go to professionals. And that's what I would say.
Can I say something about that too? Because there's this stigma around, if we speak up, we're worried someone's going to take the children we already have.
Yes.
Besides just looking crazy, like we're worried that, in a lot of cases they are quick to call someone, but a lot of times we're worried about our losing the children that we have, our children being taken away from us. And medical kidnapping is a thing now, unfortunately. But even before that even had a name, we were worried about our children being taken away from us when we did speak up, or just being brushed off when we did speak up to professionals at that. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because
And
that is
that's a crazy kind of pressure and weight to have on you when you want help, you want to reach out for help, but then you also have that fear that if I say I need help, they're going to take my children away from me.
Mm-hmm.
That's wild. What advice would you have, Nikita?
Open your mouth and talk. I hear people say all the time that, oh, I don't tell my business. Sometimes you have to. Closed mouths don't get fed,
Okay.
Put my number in the chat. They can call me. I don't care. I answer calls, DMs, texts, whatever. I've been through it. I'm not judging. I don't judge anybody for anything. I just told y'all, how many people on here? I done been in Patrick B. Harris. I don't care. Because when I got there, I know my ass will never go back again. Because
Yeah.
guess what? Those people in there are really, really sick. I wasn't. I was pregnant and didn't know it. But they can call me. They can DM me. We're on there all the time. Get a doula. If you guys find out that you're pregnant, get a doula. There are different types of doulas. It's not just the birthing doula. You got the postpartum. You got the is it a night doula? The ones that are they're not a nanny, but they stay at night with you.
Like night nurses. You can really just call
yeah.
it a postpartum doula. They just
Yeah.
specialize in overnights. Yeah.
Yeah. Get you a doula. And I'm gonna say this too, because we're not speaking about it, but men can get postpartum too.
Now look at you, because I was going to get into that after the second question.
Okay.
But but yeah, you brought it up, and it's good you bring it up, because I did a little research and I did find it out. Now I will say this: it's not from the scientific part of it. They say it's not as severe as what women go through, but men can have postpartum depression, and it normally looks like exhaustion and stress. And I was thinking about something earlier, and I may catch some flack for this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. Just something I thought about is sometimes men, when they're detached or things like that after the baby comes or whatnot, they automatically get labeled with being a deadbeat, or they just didn't want to have a baby, when some of these situations could actually be the man going through postpartum depression. So I think it's very important with that communication aspect of it, to where not only should he be checking on the mom and seeing if she's okay, but they need to both be sitting and having a conversation, talking about how they're feeling, what's going through their head, because we see it all the time where men are unaliving these kids and doing things like that, and we just deem it as them being crazy. Oh, how could he do that? Why would you do that? And we don't ever dig deep into the mental aspect of it all.
That's really good.
So thank you for bringing that up, Nakita.
You're welcome.
What advice do you have, Miss Robinson, for people that may be going through postpartum depression?
Don't be afraid to speak up. You definitely have to tell someone what you're going through, and don't stop there. Tell someone that's going to help you. You know, if they're not helping you, keep speaking. Find someone else to talk to about it, but you cannot give up, because the ramifications of giving up could be so detrimental to you and your children. So, you know, just keep pushing, keep making sure that you're being heard. And if you're not being heard, find someone that'll listen to you.
Now that covers the people that are going through the postpartum depression, but we'll start with you, Stormy. What advice would you give someone that's living with someone that's going through postpartum depression?
Give them lots of grace. Learn to hold space. Because one thing that we often lack as new moms is someone literally holding space for us and allowing us to feel our feelings and to say how we feel out loud without being picked apart. Or sometimes we don't need an immediate solution. Sometimes we just need to be heard too. Study it more, learn more about how it works and how it affects us. Because sometimes we can't articulate it ourselves, and sometimes we may not even know that's what we're dealing with, but you pick up on it. Give us grace and learn more about the process and how we feel, and help us find solutions. Don't just tell us we'll be fine, you'll be all right, ain't nothing wrong with you. You know, if we're saying something's wrong, something's wrong. Okay. How often does a woman just flat out say something's wrong?
Yeah, that's very rare.
So just hear us out and give us grace and learn more about it too, because the more you learn about it, the more you'll understand it, and the better you'll understand us, and you can help us too. Because when you have a supportive partner, that can really make a world of difference. So one thing that triggers postpartum depression out of baby blues is not feeling a sense of well-being. that literally triggers it. So if you don't feel a sense of well-being, like literally having a supportive partner or having something in place like a postpartum doula, that can literally just mash the brakes on it at baby blues. But when you don't feel a sense of well-being, that's whenever you start developing postpartum depression. So, yeah.
A lot of great advice. Tiara, what would you tell someone that's living with somebody that's dealing with postpartum depression? Or I say living with, but I mean someone that's around someone. Maybe I should say that.
Be there for them, because you never know what battles they are dealing with, the struggles that they're dealing with, because everybody needs someone, so no one is meant to do this life thing by themselves, so just be there in every aspect you can.
I don't mean to smile at that, but I was reading something. Oh, Courtney, what advice would you give someone that's dealing with someone that has postpartum depression?
I would touch back on what Stormy said. Hold space in whatever that may look like, even if it's just holding space for them to vent, holding space for them to have space, holding space for them to just come sit, cry on your shoulder and nobody say anything. Whatever they need in that moment, I would say just, do the best that you can. You're not going to be able to figure out everything, but do the best that you can to try to meet them where they are, because, if we could go farther, we would come farther to meet you. But this is all I have right now. I can only go the 40%. So can you come to 60? I think that's very important, in feeling like you have that support, and feeling like you have somebody who is there and wants to be there and wants to help you.
I'm gonna put that on a t-shirt. That was good. What about you, Nikita?
Oh, of course, I'm gonna say reach out to them at all times. Like, people, again, they think once you have a baby, that's it. They don't have to really talk. Come and see the baby once. They don't have to talk to you anymore. They don't have to check on you. They're quick to say, oh, let's go out and eat. Let's go to the club. Let's go out of town. But after that, they just don't want to talk. So if you are a true friend, a family member, whatever, you should be calling that person or starting a conversation just to try to start the conversation. Because some people are not going to say anything, and you kind of have to pull it out of them. Like, I would start off like, you can talk to me about anything. I mean, absolutely anything. And I'm just going to listen. I'm not going to talk and tell you, like my mom used to tell me, you'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. I'm not going to do that. What can we do to help you? What do you need?
Mm-hmm. What about you, Miss Robinson?
I agree with everything that everyone mentioned. Definitely holding space. I know that it can be hard and difficult, especially since 2020, to go and pick someone. I was one of those friends that pack the baby's bag, give me the baby, let me take the baby for the weekend or a couple of hours or whatever you need, just so you can take a shower or so you can take a walk or you can do something for yourself. So sometimes we just need to also not just make the phone call, but pull up. Let me let me take the baby for you. Let me cook something for you. Let me do something that can help you, even if it's sitting and talking with you. But yeah, sometimes we have to ask, what do you need? How can I help you? What can make your life easier today? And I think that definitely, I wish I had it. Lord knows I wish I had it. But that, and definitely, I think sometimes we forget that humor is good for the soul as well. So listen, I'll crack jokes all day long. We're gonna be cracking up, we're gonna be laughing, we're gonna be in tears over here. But definitely get some laughter in there. Go see a comedy show. I think that we really don't realize how important that is as well.
Yeah.
I totally
I also
agree.
want to say, find an outlet you might not always have somebody to talk to. And I get to that point where I'm overwhelmed. I write, listen to music, find something
Learning is
that's
important.
for you. Help you.
Mhm.
So
Meta-
much.
Sometimes just putting those words to light, like giving those words life, sometimes getting that out of your head where you're not thinking about it, but you've actually put it out there and now you can move forward. I know that helped me a lot, just really just telling people like what I was going through, and for someone to actually listen to me, that made the world of a difference for me.
That's amazing. And y'all, I even though I could sit here and look at Stormy's baby all night long, I'm a
Can we get a close up? I need to
guys,
see that face.
Look at the jaws.
look at the cheek.
I see it all from here. From here. I just want to smell her. Let me just smell her.
Look at it.
Beautiful.
I love that look of not
Yeah,
knowing what's
baby.
going on and who she looking at, but she here.
She's huge, y'all. She's 14 pounds.
Yeah.
What? And she's 2
Yeah.
months? Oh my goodness.
Yes, she's 14
That
pounds.
sounds
It's,
like my baby.
Yeah.
I want to smell the baby breath.
I know, isn't the baby's breath the
Look at that
best?
one there.
Yes. Oh, my goodness. Look at the puppy.
He thought I was talking to
That's
him, so
a
he's
puppy?
judging me. He's talking. Yeah, listen to him talking to me. I wasn't talking to you. I was talking to the baby.
That's a dog.
Child.
That's a dog. What is that? A Rottweiler?
I wasn't talking to you.
Yeesh. He looked like he understands too.
Yes.
He's very
All
intelligent.
these people.
Go away. Go away. I
Well,
wasn't talking to you.
We've had baby and puppy overload, so I want to say
I
that
know.
I
Sorry about
thank
that.
all
We
of you
tried to
guys.
keep her away, but I
Oh
can only
no,
give
I'm glad
so
you
long.
didn't. I'm glad she kicked the door in and made her entrance.
Yes.
Yeah.
That just goes to show mom life never stops, honey.
It
It
does
doesn't.
not. It doesn't.
24/7, 365.
But
Yes.
before you go, because me and Stormy, we're gonna try to nail this. You guys, please, because I fuss all the time. They have extravagant baby showers.
Oh, I wasn't gonna say nothing.
I am gonna say something. Listen,
I was actually gonna say it too.
oh my bad. You know I got that.
Yeah,
it's that
you
thing,
jumped
but
right on the end, so
I'll
take
be
it.
right there
Take it.
because I'm very passionate. I'm like Stormy. I'm very passionate. And listen, money is money, and I know it's kind of hard sometimes. You know, listen, we take payment arrangements. I do. I don't know about Stormy, but I take payment arrangements. You know what
Yeah,
I'm saying?
it's good to be super flexible, but we also have to keep in mind everybody doesn't find the value in what we do until
Right.
it's too late. They look back and they'll be like, I shouldn't have thrown that big ass baby shower. I could have put that money towards a doula.
Well, hopefully conversations like this will open up, people's minds and hearts and everything. And so they can understand that we spend as a people so much money on things that will not push us forward in life, that will not better our lives and things like that. We really need to start thinking about what can help us.
Because the
first thing I hear is, oh, it's too expensive. Some doulas take insurance, some don't. I don't. There is a black doula grant in our area for Prisma. They can fill out for that, so they'll pay up to $1,000 for a doula. Okay. I have a young woman, and I'm gonna stop talking in a minute. I know her mom, and she's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have any help. I want a doula. They declined me for the grant, and I'm scared. And I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to apply for unemployment. She's not going to get it because she's pregnant. She's doing 2 months. And I basically said, and I told her, don't worry about it. I got it. And I'm not going to do that for everybody. But the way this child cried on the phone, I'm going to do it. And she's doing 2 months. So I'm like, I can't let that happen. I can't. She's got a lot of health issues too. So I can't let it happen. So I'm going to just go ahead and do it pro bono. Because at this point, if I do that, I don't do it for the business. I do it because I want everybody to be aware. But she's like, oh my God, I got to tell my friend who's pregnant. Or you know what I'm saying? Like, get a doula. Get a doula.
Yeah. we'll get to a point
Yeah.
where, well, hopefully we'll get to a point where people will start prioritizing a lot better. I mean, because I didn't know until the other day that people are still out here spending thousands of dollars on systems for the cars. So I mean,
Oh
if
yeah.
they can do that, then
They
we
are.
ought to be able to assist these women that we are making these children with, so
Yeah.
that they can have as smooth of a transition as possible with having our babies, so that their mental health and our own can be a lot better. We really need to start caring more about that family dynamic and that foundation that we have, so that we can have a lot more happy mothers, fathers, and children. A lot
Yeah,
more
sometimes
healthy.
fathers are the reason why mothers don't hire extra help.
Yeah, they don't want to pay for it.
Yes, you hear it a lot, like, well, what is she going to do that your mom can't, or that your
Oh,
aunt can't,
wow.
or that your grandma can't, and then everybody's looking cross-eyed in postpartum, because you probably could have spent a little extra change on that help. And if you have to choose between a birth or postpartum, if you really feel like you're not going to have the help, do postpartum. Birth is fleeting. It's traumatic and it's fleeting, right? But once that time passes, postpartum, again, what did I say earlier? It lasts forever, but
Yeah.
early postpartum is when you need the extra set of hands.
Yeah.
So if you have to choose, that's my piece of advice too. If you have to choose between birth and postpartum, I say choose a postpartum doula.
Yeah, and being a doula is not easy. I've learned. I'm still recuperating from a week ago. It's not easy, because you have to take on the it's empathy. So you have to take on the feeling of the mom. The dad is there. The mom, the grandmother's there. The kids might be there, and it's a lot to soak in, and your energy is just gone. And I slept for like 3 days. I'm
I
still
told
tired.
you.
Yep. And she'll tell you, don't stay there the whole time, but sometimes you have to. I was there, I was up 25 and a half hours, no sleep, but I was at the hospital 14 and a half. 14 and a half.
Well, by George, don't let me hold you any longer. Ladies, I appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for your expertise. Thank you for sharing a part of your lives.
Thank you for having us. It was nice meeting you ladies too.
Thank
you
you
for
for
Yes,
having
it
me.
was a pleasure, you all.
You're very
Yes.
welcome.
Thank
I hope
you.
you all have a wonderful night. And if you didn't hear anything else, ladies and gentlemen, get you a doula.
Thank you.
Nothing else.
Doula.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I'm a swap out of here and go over to Wisdom and see if my people over there want to talk a little bit about it. But
I'll be over there in
thank
a
you,
minute.
guys. All right, now y'all have a great night. Keep pressing
I
forward.
might pop into.
Pop, go on and pop on over there.
All right, y'all have a good night.
Good night, y'all.
All right.
All right. Good night.